podcast.
Listen, learn, and speak English with confidence.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the English Goal Podcast, the place where you can improve your English through calm, natural conversations about life, mindset, and personal growth.
I'm Rachel.
And I'm Kevin.
Kevin, can I ask you something?
Of course. What's your question?
When do you think people finally say, I have enough?
That's a surprisingly difficult question. I'm not sure many people ever say it.
Why not?
Because there always seems to be another goal, another dream, another promotion, another holiday, another thing to buy, another mountain to climb. It's as though the finish line keeps moving.
I think you're right. Have you ever noticed how often people say, I'll be happy when I get a better job, when I buy a bigger house, when I lose a little weight, when I have more money, when life becomes easier?
Yes, it's almost as if happiness is always waiting somewhere in the future, never right here, never today.
Exactly. But here's what I've always wondered. What happens when we finally reach those goals? Do we stop chasing, or do we simply find something new to chase?
From my experience, it's usually the second one. A new goal appears almost immediately.
And that's what today's conversation is all about.
Today's episode is called Why We Keep Chasing More.
Today, we'll explore why human beings always seem to want more, why success doesn't always bring satisfaction, and how learning to appreciate what we already have might be one of the greatest skills we can develop.
If you're a B1 or B2 learner, this conversation is perfect for you.
And if you're a strong A2 learner, just relax, listen, and enjoy.
Let's begin.
Kevin, do you remember what you wanted most when you were a child?
Oh, yes. A bicycle. I thought it would change my life. I spent months thinking about it. Every birthday, every Christmas, I hoped that would be the year.
And when you finally got it?
I was so excited. I rode it every day. I couldn't stop smiling. But after a few months, it became my normal bicycle. It wasn't special anymore.
That's interesting. The bicycle didn't change, only your feelings about it.
Exactly. At first, it felt extraordinary. Then, little by little, it became ordinary.
I think that happens throughout our lives. When we're young, we want a bicycle. Later, we want a car, then a bigger house, then a better salary, then another achievement. There's always another chapter.
There's nothing wrong with ambition. Dreams give us direction. Goals encourage us to grow. The problem begins when we believe that happiness only exists after the next achievement.
Exactly. Imagine climbing a mountain. You tell yourself, when I reach the top, I'll finally feel complete. You reach the top, you enjoy the view for a few minutes, then you notice another mountain.
A taller one.
Usually a taller one.
And suddenly, the mountain you just climbed doesn't seem quite so impressive.
Why do you think that happens?
Maybe because human beings quickly adapt. Yesterday's dream becomes today's routine. What once felt extraordinary eventually feels normal.
I think that's true. The first day in a new home, you notice everything. The smell, the colors, the excitement. 6 months later, it simply feels like home.
The same happens with almost everything. A new phone, a new job, a new city. At first, everything feels exciting. Eventually, it becomes part of everyday life.
Which means the problem isn't that we have goals. The problem is expecting our goals to make us permanently happy.
Exactly, because no achievement can do that. Happiness isn't something we arrive at, it's something we practice.
I love that sentence. Happiness is something we practice. Not something we purchase, not something we win, not something we discover at the end of a long journey.
Exactly. It reminds me of something my grandmother used to say. If you can't enjoy a simple meal, you won't enjoy a luxurious one for very long. When I was younger, I didn't understand. Now, I think she was right.
Because gratitude doesn't depend on what's on the table, it depends on how we choose to see it.
Rachel, can I ask you something?
Of course.
Have you ever achieved a goal that you'd wanted for years, only to realize it didn't change your life as much as you expected?
Past. Yes. When I got my first full-time job, I thought, this is it. Now I'll feel like a real adult. For a few weeks, I did. Then life returned to normal. There were still good days, difficult days, laundry, shopping, cooking, paying bills. I realized that life hadn't suddenly become perfect. It had simply become life.
I think that's a lesson many of us learn again and again. We keep looking for one moment, one achievement, one purchase that will finally complete us.
But maybe we're already more complete than we realize. Maybe what we're missing isn't more things. Maybe it's more appreciation for what we already have.
That's a beautiful thought, because perhaps the opposite of always wanting more isn't having less. Perhaps it's learning to notice how much we already have.
Kevin, there's something I've been thinking about. If we keep chasing more, how do we ever know when we've reached enough?
Maybe we don't. Not because enough doesn't exist, but because we rarely stop long enough to notice it.
That's interesting. Perhaps we're so busy looking ahead that we forget to look around.
Exactly. Imagine you're driving towards a beautiful destination. You're so focused on arriving that you never notice the mountains, the rivers, or the sunset along the way. You reach your destination, but you've missed most of the journey.
Life can feel like that. We're always planning the next chapter, the next holiday, the next promotion, the next weekend, the next year. And while we're planning our future, today quietly becomes yesterday.
There's a question I sometimes ask myself. If nothing changed over the next year, could I still find reasons to be grateful?
I love that question because it reminds us that gratitude doesn't wait for perfect circumstances. It begins with what we already have.
Exactly. Clean water, a warm meal, a safe place to sleep, people who care about us, the ability to learn, to laugh, to walk. These things can become so ordinary that we stop seeing how extraordinary they really are.
Kevin, have you ever noticed how children can become excited about the smallest things?
All the time. A butterfly, a puddle, an ice cream, a cardboard box. Sometimes the box is more exciting than the toy inside it.
Exactly. Children don't spend their day thinking, I'll be happy next year. They're happy because they're fully present right now.
Somewhere along the way, many of us lose that ability. We become so focused on achieving that we forget how to appreciate.
And appreciation is a skill. It doesn't happen automatically. We have to practice it.
I started doing something very simple a few months ago. Every evening before going to bed, I ask myself, what made me smile today? Some days the answer is something big. Other days it's simply a good cup of coffee or a conversation with a friend.
That's beautiful. Because those little moments are easy to forget. Yet they're often the moments that quietly fill our lives with happiness.
There's another thing I've realized. Comparison makes it almost impossible to feel that we have enough.
I couldn't agree more. The moment we compare our lives to someone else's, our attention moves away from what we have and towards what we lack.
Exactly. Someone always has a bigger house, a newer car, more followers, a better salary. If comparison becomes our habit, there will always be someone who appears to have more.
Which means we'll never feel rich, no matter how much we own.
That's why I think contentment isn't about having everything. It's about stopping the endless habit of measuring your life against someone else's.
I love that, because success shouldn't be borrowed from another person. It should be defined by you.
Rachel, if someone asked you, what does a successful life look like? Would your answer be different today than it was 10 years ago?
Very different. 10 years ago, I probably would have talked about career, money, and achievements. Today, I'd talk about peace, health, time, friendship, meaningful work, people I love. Those things feel far more valuable to me now.
I think that's wisdom, not because goals become unimportant, but because we realize that life is bigger than our goals.
Exactly. Goals can make our lives better, but they shouldn't become the only reason we enjoy living.
Perhaps the happiest people aren't the ones who have the most. Perhaps they're the ones who've learned to enjoy what they already have.
And maybe that's where real abundance begins, not with getting more, but with finally seeing how much is already here. Rachel, there's something I've realized while we've been talking. Maybe the problem isn't that we want more. Maybe the problem is that we're afraid that what we already have isn't enough.
That's a very honest thought, and I think many people feel that way. We're afraid of falling behind, afraid of missing out, afraid that if we stop chasing, everyone else will move ahead.
Exactly. We see other people's lives on social media, their holidays, their promotions, their new homes, their celebrations, and without realizing it, we begin to compare our ordinary days with their best moments.
Which isn't a fair comparison, because we rarely see their struggles, their doubts, their difficult days, their failures. We only see the highlights.
And yet, those highlights can quietly convince us that everyone else is happier than we are.
I remember reading a simple sentence, quote, "Comparison is the thief of joy." The more I think about it, the more I believe it's true.
Because the moment we compare, our attention moves away from our own life. Instead of asking, "What am I grateful for?" we start asking, "Why don't I have what they have?"
Exactly. And suddenly, our own achievements don't feel quite as meaningful.
Kevin, do you think it's possible to have goals and still be content?
Absolutely. In fact, I think that's the healthiest way to live. Contentment doesn't mean giving up. It doesn't mean stopping your dreams. It simply means you're grateful for today while working towards tomorrow.
I love that, because some people think contentment means being lazy, but that's not true at all.
No. Imagine planting a tree. You know it will take years to grow. You still water it, you still care for it, but you don't stand beside it every day complaining that it isn't tall enough. You trust the process.
That's a beautiful example. Growth takes time, whether you're learning English, building a career, or becoming the person you want to be.
Exactly. We can work hard without living in constant dissatisfaction.
You know, I think one of the happiest people I ever met was my neighbor when I was a child. He wasn't wealthy, he lived in a small house, he drove an old car, he worked in the same job for years. But every evening, he sat outside his house, watched the sunset, and smiled at everyone who walked past.
What do you think made him so happy?
I think he appreciated what he had instead of thinking about what he didn't. He wasn't waiting for life to become better, he was already living it.
That's a wonderful lesson. Sometimes we think contentment comes after success, but perhaps success begins with contentment.
So maybe the question isn't, how can I get more? Maybe it's, what do I already have that I haven't fully appreciated?
A family, a friend, good health, a chance to learn, a peaceful morning, a walk in nature, a conversation, a good book, a warm cup of tea. Life is full of small gifts that we often walk past without noticing.
And perhaps that's why gratitude changes everything. It doesn't change our circumstances, it changes the way we see them.
Maybe the reason we keep chasing more is because we've forgotten to pause, to breathe, to look around, and to realize that some of the things we once dreamed of are already part of our lives.
I think that's a beautiful place to finish, because the richest life isn't always the one with the most. Sometimes it's the one where you can quietly say, I have enough.
Now it's time for today's word walk. Here are 5 useful words from today's conversation. Word 1, contentment. Contentment means feeling happy and satisfied with what you already have. For example, she found contentment in a simple life.
Word 2, ambition. Ambition means a strong desire to achieve something important. For example, his ambition inspired him to keep learning.
Word 3, fulfillment. Fulfillment means a deep feeling of happiness that comes from living a meaningful life. For example, teaching gave her a sense of fulfillment. Word 4, gratitude.
Gratitude means the feeling of being thankful for what you have. For example, he begins every day with gratitude. Word 5, satisfaction.
Satisfaction means the pleasant feeling of knowing that something is enough or has been done well. For example, she looked at her work with great satisfaction.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope this conversation has encouraged you to pause for a moment and appreciate what's already in your life.
Dream big, work hard, keep growing, but don't forget to enjoy the place where you are today, because one day, today may become the moment you look back on and realize these were the good old days.
This week, instead of asking, what's the next thing I need, try asking, what do I already have that brings me joy? The answer might surprise you.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to the English Goal podcast, leave us a review, and share this episode with someone who might need this reminder.
And we'd love to hear from you. When was the last time you stopped and thought, I already have enough? Share your thoughts in the comments.
I'm Kevin.
And I'm Rachel. You've been listening to the English Goal podcast. Your English goal
And your life goal are both closer than you think.